The air inside the private terminal at Zurich International was kept at precise, chilling 64 degrees, perfect for preserving the high-end artwork on the walls and the cold egos of the men who owned them. Julian, the titan of global shipping, stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching his private jet being fueled. He wore a sharp, bold red power tie and a matching pocket square that looked like a drop of blood against his gray suit. Approaching him was Nia, the newly appointed director of the Global Maritime Oversight. She was dressed in a royal blue silk wrap dress and a matching navy overcoat draped over her shoulders. The blue was deep and commanding, the color of the very oceans Julian thought he controlled. Nia reached out, extending her hand in a gesture of professional courtesy. "Mr. Julian, I believe our meeting was scheduled for 10 minutes ago. I'm here to discuss the compliance of your Atlantic fleet." Julian didn't even turn around. He continued to stare at his plane, a smirk playing on his lips. "I don't shake hands with bureaucrats, especially those who think a blue dress gives them the right to question my heritage." He finally turned, his eyes raking over Nia with a dismissive sneer. "You're not a partner, Nia. You're a footnote. My family has moved cargo since before your ancestors could read a map. Now, get out of my terminal before I have my security treat you like the trespasser you are." The justice debt had been compounding since Nia's arrival, when she had pulled up to the terminal in a dark navy Lexus LS. Julian's lead security officer, Silas, had intercepted her. Silas wore a red armband, the mark of Julian's private security force. Parked that plastic heap in employee overflow a mile down the tarmac. Silas had barked, tapping his baton against her window. The boss doesn't like looking at economy vehicles while he's trying to enjoy his espresso. Nia had complied, walking the long, wind-swept mile back to the terminal, her blue coat fluttering in the sub-zero alpine breeze. Inside the terminal, the humiliation continued. Julian had made her wait in a hallway without a chair while he toasted with his board members, Vance and Cassandra, both sporting bold red accents in their attire. Through the glass doors, Nia watched them laugh as Julian mimicked her hopeful expression when she tried to enter the room. "Look at her," Vance chuckled, adjusting his red silk tie. "She actually thinks the oversight office has teeth. She probably bought that blue dress on a government salary. It's adorable." When Julian finally allowed her into the lounge, he didn't offer a seat. He poured himself a $500 glass of scotch and intentionally tipped the decanter, letting a splash of amber liquid hit Nia's shoes. "Oops," my hand slipped. "Just like your career is about to slip if you stay in this room another 30 seconds. My Atlantic fleet is none of your business. I own the ports, I own the ships, and after next month's election, I'll practically own your office." Nia didn't flinch at the liquid on her shoes. She stood perfectly still, her royal blue attire making her look like a lighthouse in a storm of red-tinted arrogance. She checked her watch, a simple, elegant piece. 11:59 a.m. "You're very confident in your ownership, Julian," Nia said, her voice a calm, oceanic blue that silenced the room. "But you spent so much time looking at the horizon that you forgot to check who owns the water beneath you." Julian laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "I own the vessels, Nia. That's all that matters. Now get out. My pilot is waiting." The digital clock on the terminal wall flipped to 12 p.m. Julian was already halfway to the airlock, his bold red power tie flapping over his shoulder. He didn't even look back, assuming Nia was scurrying toward the exit in her cheap blue dress. "Julian," Nia called out. Her voice wasn't loud, but it had a resonant authority that stopped the billionaire in his tracks. "Your pilot isn't waiting for you. He's currently being detained by federal marshals. And your plane? It just became the property of the Global Maritime Oversight." Julian spun around, his face a mask of disbelief that quickly curdled into a sneer. "Silas," he roared, gesturing to his head of security. "Throw this woman out of the building. Now!" Silas stepped forward, but as he reached for his radio, the device emitted a long, flat tone. Every screen in the terminal, from the flight trackers to the security monitors, flickered once and turned a cold, royal blue. "Silas won't be taking orders from you anymore," Nia said, stepping into the center of the lounge. She pulled a slim, encrypted tablet from her navy bag. You said you own the vessels, Julian. You were right, but you don't own the Maritime Insurance Ledger. Per the Sovereign Waterways Act, any fleet owner who openly defies a compliance audit by a director is classified as a high-risk rogue entity. This triggers an immediate asset freeze and liquidation to prevent the flight of capital. Julian's phone began to vibrate violently on the table. It was Vance, his lead counsel, calling from the London office. Julian answered, his voice shaking. "Vance, tell me this is a glitch." "It's over, Julian." Vance's voice was panicked, audible to everyone in the room. "The oversight office just pulled our letter of credit. The banks in Singapore, Rotterdam, and New York are closing our accounts as we speak. They're liquidating $3 billion in assets to cover potential environmental indemnity. We're being erased." The power shift was visceral. Cassandra, who had been laughing at Nia's shoes minutes ago, now looked at her own red-accented heels with terror. She realized the color they all wore, the red of Julian's dynasty, was now a neon sign for federal investigators. The glass doors of the terminal slid open. A team of 20 agents in deep Navy windbreakers with Maritime Federal in gold letters stormed the lounge. They didn't go for Nia. They surrounded Julian and his board. "Julian Thorne," the lead agent said, stepping past Silas, who stood frozen. "Your global fleet has been remotely anchored. You are under investigation for sovereign debt evasion. Please step away from the bar." Julian looked at Nia, his eyes wild. He reached out, his hand shaking, finally offering a handshake he had denied her. "Nia, wait. We can talk about this. I'll sign the compliance papers. I'll double your budget. Just stop the liquidation." Nia looked at his extended hand with the same clinical coldness he had shown her. She didn't move a muscle. "I don't shake hands with rogues, Julian, especially those who think they own the water they're drowning in." She turned to the agents. "Seize the terminal. And someone get me a towel. A billionaire spilled scotch on my shoes, and I'd like the cost of the cleaning deducted from his remaining personal accounts." As Julian was let out in handcuffs, his red tie was crooked and his face was pale. He was forced to walk past a long line of employees he had mistreated, all of whom were watching the King of the Seas being hauled away like common cargo. The woman in royal blue stood by the window, watching his jet, now her jet, being towed to a government hangar. By 1 p.m., the Thorn shipping logo was being digitally scrubbed from every port in the world. Julian had lost $3 billion because he thought he was too big to be polite. Nia walked out of the terminal, the sub-zero wind no longer feeling cold. She had signaled to the world that the ocean no longer belonged to the men in red. It belonged to the law in blue.